What's going on? Greetings, people. It's the Black Trekker. Thank you for taking the time out your day, your morning, your evening, or your afternoon to join me in another wonderful video. With that being said, like, share, and subscribe. Right now I'm watching this video from TNG. This episode is called Where No One Has Gone Before. It's the 5th episode of the first season. Now, the reason why this episode is actually quite touching is because of the simple fact that it talks about speed, talks about velocity. This is the premise: is a guy. His name is Kaczynski. It's really difficult to determine what his rank or what his position is, but he's some kind of chief scientist that's correlated to improving warp engines to make them more efficient. And he has an assistant, and the assistant is an alien. Didn't really define what species he was from, but Riker stated what planet he was from. And so, because of that, he's a mystery. He's a mystery to the crew. He's a mystery to Council Troy because she can't read him. So she has no idea what his intentions are, or even to speculate what his intentions would be. So what happens is that Kaczynski comes on. He's quite sure of himself. He's overbearing. He's arrogant. But supposedly he's improved the functions on a number of other ships. One of the ships called the Fearless that he was beamed over from. And those ships were kind of older, true indeed. However, the Enterprise's engines are state-of-the-art at this particular moment, brand new. And so what occurs is that he wants to do some tests on the Enterprise's engines, and they're going to start at warp 1.5. They're going to start at warp 1.5, and then it's going to gradually go faster. Now, what happens is that this alien has become amused initially by Wesley Crusher, because Wesley Crusher is doing some kind of science experiment in engineering. Now, Kaczynski, he finds the boy's presence to be annoying. And because of that, he doesn't want, the child to be in the engineering department. But thankfully, he dismisses the child and he allows him to continue. But the alien takes notice of Wesley Crusher's presence, and he takes an interest. So with that being said, the test begins. And then a few moments later, they immediately go into like this super warp, well past warp 10. And they get to a position of 2.7 million light years from where they were. A beautiful rendition, beautiful CGI of a place that, quite frankly, is unfathomable. And Picard is eager to get back. Now, in this particular instance, Picard's level of interest in scientific curiosity was tempered by the safety of the crew. Now, when I said initially about speed and velocity, from the perspective of a 21st century man, the technology that's wielded by the Starship Enterprise D is science fiction. I'm able to understand and also interpret that the technology is unrealistic at this current stage of development for us. However, what I will say is that even with that technology, we could become stagnant and we could become impatient with the rate of speed that it takes for us to reach a given location in a given amount of time. I think Commander Data stated that they had traveled that distance, and then at that particular moment, Lieutenant LaForge stated that even at maximum warp, it would take 300 years to be able to get back to the position that they were at. So what they did was they sent a signal at subspace, and moving at subspace, which I believe is faster than warp 9.9 something, it would take 51 years to get back to the Federation. So the thought process is this: is the speed and the velocity in which they travel convenient? Now, the reason why I bring this up is because I'm watching this episode, and this episode is very interesting because there's a scene where Picard is on a turbolift. He's about to get off a turbolift. He opens the turbolift, and what happens is that it's space, like literally space. Thankfully, he's holding on to the turbolift so he doesn't get sucked out. He goes back into the turbolift, and then he's able to be back on the actual regular deck of the ship that's leading to engineering. As he's walking, he sees different crewmen experiencing different aspects of reality. And what happens is that when he's turning the corner, he sees his mother. And immediately, like any other son that loved his mom, he acknowledges her and he says, Mama. And I assume that's the term for mother or mommy in French. And so he immediately stops and engages her. And he talks. And she says, this is where no one has gone before. This is the end of the universe. Or could this be the beginning of the universe? And it made me think, a lot of Star Trek fans believe that the purpose of the creation of Star Trek was to cite a utopian future for humanity, but then also for exploration of space, the final frontier. But I think now that space is really not the final frontier in relation to Star Trek. Because when Wesley Crusher was in engineering and he was talking to, which later on in science fiction, his name would become the Traveler. When he was talking to the Traveler about what they believe is, we believe that space and time and existence are separated in thought. And then the Traveler stopped them and said, boy, don't say nothing like that. You're too young and you're in a particular time where those are dangerous things to be saying. But in hindsight, I really think that's what it is. I think Gene Roddenberry didn't necessarily expect that his core audience, which back in the 1960s and then in the 1980s, Star Trek was really geared towards like intellectually savvy people. It wasn't just for your run-of-the-mill people that's looking for fight scenes and sword fights. And this is not a knock at Star Wars, even though Star Wars is okay, mediocre. But this is actually for the intellectual at heart, the person that actually thinks about the in-depth questions. Because once you're able to go faster than the speed of light, once you're able to go past faster than the speed of light, then what happens is that you have to start asking yourself, what's the limit of our acceleration? What's the limit on how far we can travel? And like warp 9.93, I think is the fastest that the Enterprise D can go. So with that being said, from their perspective, they've reached the limits. But when you start getting into the possibility of thought, when you start getting into the possibility of comprehension, then you get onto a whole nother level of speed and velocity and acceleration and travel. Because although we don't have the technology currently to be able to accelerate and explore the greater aspects of the galaxy, I mean, I'm not really concerned with exploring the universe, because even in Star Trek, the guy named Kaczynski said that in 300 years, we've explored 11% of the galaxy, and look how far we've come. I would be content with just exploring the galaxy, to be honest with you. But even at this point in stage of modern man, which I'm a part of, I could think about speeds going 1,000,000 times faster than the speed of light, which the speed of light is 186,000 miles a second. So imagine if I can go 1,000,000 times the speed of light. We could traverse the galaxy. I would dare say in a couple of centuries, humanity would be tens of thousands of light years from Earth. And I would be content with that. But in this particular episode, it goes so much far and further beyond our realm of thought, because it says, what if this is not about space? What if this is not about planets? What if this is not about what we believe we understand about the universe at large? What if it's about just thought? And then it harkens back to what Q said. So all series long, this has not been about meeting new aliens. This has not been about strange new worlds. This has all been about your existence in reality, in your thought process. It's crazy. I know a lot of other Star Trek shows have gotten away from that, but this situation, this conversation that Picard is having with his mother, I just want you guys to sit back and I want you to think about it for a hot second. What does this really mean? Is he just hallucinating? Is he actually talking to a representative? Because in the actual image, it's like these white orbs that are going around like near the ship. They're not hostile, but they're going around the ship and they're going into oblivion. I don't know. But it was a beautiful scene. Check out that. I'm looking at it right now. It's on timestamp 25 minutes and 23 seconds. Definitely check it out. And in the comment section, write what you think it is. I think Star Trek at large is about existence and thought. Not about exploration of space, not about any of that. I think it's purely about existence and thought. And the Traveler and the Q, and perhaps even the El-Lorians, know that. Anyway, thanks for your time. Like, share, and subscribe, and bring somebody who is not a fan of Trek into Trek so they can appreciate the beauty and the splendor of what we enjoy. Live long and prosper.